Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Professor KRS Sambasiva Rao, respected Pro Vice-Chancellor, Professor J.K. Patnaik, distinguished panelists on the dais, Professor Panda, Mr. L.R. Sailo, and Professor Doungel, and respected Registrar, Mizoram University, faculty members, senior professors, and other faculty members, and my dear students. It is indeed an honor and privilege to extend a warm welcome to you all on behalf of the Program Organizing Committee and also on behalf of Mizoram University. Today we have assembled at this moment to have an insightful discussion on Modi at 20, Dreams Meet Delivery. You must be wondering why suddenly the university is interested in organizing this kind of discussion. Just a few points why we are discussing this program. I would like to highlight that it is a notification from the Central Ministry and UGC. The ministry has suggested that Central University has selected 25 to 28 universities, Central University, to organize this kind of program on the book Modi at 20. So Mizoram University, as a central university, is also one of the selected university to organize this kind of program. So we are here today on this program. So before I continue, I would like to call upon our registrar, Mizoram University, Professor Lalnundanga, to felicitate our panelists, and then the program will be handed over to the moderator. Ushers, please come. So as I call out their name for felicitation, they will be felicitated by our registrar, Professor Lalnundanga. Our panelist, Professor Bharigathi, he is an honorary director, ICSSR-NERC, Nehu, Shillong. Professor KRS Sambasiva Rao, the Vice-Chancellor of Mizoram University. Sir, we have ordered everything for them. Okay, he has passed on to Mr. L.R. Sailo, the Regional Director, Northeastern Region Campus, IIMC. And Professor J. Doungel, he is a professor in the Department of Political Science, Mizoram University. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, sir, Professor Lalnundanga. Those are our panelists today. They will be discussing about the book, Modi at 20. So at this time, I will hand over the time to our moderator, who is also the chairman of this program, respected Pro Vice-Chancellor, Professor J.K. Patnaik.
Thank you, Dr. Ruth. Honorable Vice-Chancellor, respected resource person from Northeastern University, Professor Bharigathi, our registrar, other panelists, Dr. Sailo, L.R. Sailo, and Professor Doungel. Also, my dear colleagues, senior professors, my dear students. As already informed to you by Dr. Ruth, that this program has been organized at the instance of the Ministry of Education. Though it's a kind of top-down approach, nevertheless, remember the fact that the exercise that we are going to conduct today, it is an intellectual exercise and also a kind of an eye-opener for every one of us in this room, as well as for the people in the country. This function is meant to discuss the Modi H20 Dreams Meet Delivery. This is the book. Many of you might not have seen. Some of you might have also seen. Some of you might have also read it. This book contains 21 articles written by all important personalities associated with Modi government. I'm not going to get into the details of the content, although I have not read fully. I've read a few of these articles, not all, because based on my special interest I have read. The authorship ranges from Nandan Nilekani, the father of Aadhaar card, to Devi Sethi, the cardiologist, Ajit Doval, the National Security Advisor, S. Jaishankar, who is also the foreign minister and former diplomat. The foreword for the book was written by the late Lata Mangeshkar, Bharat Ratna. It's a unique book. It's not the book dealing with eulogizing or praising Modi. It's an eye-opener for all of us that how Narendra Damodar Modi ventured his political career from being just a modest, ordinary Karyakarta, and in a span of 20 years, that is exactly in the year 2000, when he joined politics as a political leader. Prior to that, he was a social worker. He was an RSS Karyakarta and Pracharak. And that man could reach to that zenith of his career by being the Prime Minister of India. And successfully 2 times he has been already elected. And I'm sure next time also he would be having a fair chance to get elected. Such is the dynamic, charismatic leader who could rise up from the ranks of RSS. For us, it is a kind of an eye-opener. For us, it's a kind of a learning. It's not, this book doesn't contain anything praising Modi. Don't mistake that notion. How Modi as an individual, as a character, a unique character who has got his, by dint of his sheer intellectual capability, his deep understanding of the Indian society and civilization, wanted to have his imprint in every aspect of India. Remember, I'm telling extempore. I have not come prepared. I mean what I say. There is nothing, snobbish. After reading a few articles, I was really astounded. Particularly this morning, I devoted a few hours to read Ajit Doval's article. We have heard about Ajit Doval so many things. He was working here in Mizoram, and he was responsible for the signing of the accord. You should know this. An IPS officer of Agbut cadre. And how he also handled the Operation Blue Star. Those things are not there in the book, but I know about him like this. And what is his impression about Modi's national security policy? That is, when I read that, actually I saw that at every stage Modi has got his imprint on the national security aspect. Ditto is the case with Nandan Nilekani. You see, I read about Nandan Nilekani from a book called The World is Flat. The first word is Nandan Nilekani, written by Tom Friedman. That is a very famous book, which ushered in the 4th Industrial Revolution. That is this book which dealt with the 4th Industrial Revolution. And there I came to know about Nandan Nilekani. Nandan Nilekani contested from Congress ticket, and he lost the elections in Bangalore. But his project of this unique ID, Aadhaar card, was implemented by Congress party And he thought when Modi came, that will be given up. Modi would throw it. And he sought an appointment with Modi ji to pursue his project. Interestingly, Modi ji gave within 24 hours his appointment, and Nandan Kalni made his presentation on this unique Aadhaar card, identity number, and it was accepted. And since then, Nandan Nilekani is ruling the roost. Such is the kind of the impression I carry about the book. We have got the experts, the panelists, who have gone through the book in detail, and specifically, of course, Professor Doungel has got some articles to deal with. Mr. Sailo will also talk about how Modi is a communicator. And of course, our external expert will have a comprehensive discussion about the book. This is about the book, the introductory remarks as a moderator. Now I request our Vice-Chancellor, sir, to just speak a few lines as a word of inaugural speech. I request Honorable Vice-Chancellor, sir, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Respected guests on the dais, Honorable Pro Vice-Chancellor, Honorable Registrar, and the external expert, Professor Bharigathi Pandey, and the internal experts, Professor Sailo, Dr. Sailo, and Dr. Doungel, and my colleagues in front of the dais, and Akhil Bharat Hindi Pracharak Director Amit, and his colleague, and the coordinator, Ruth, and student friends and research scholars. Actually, I'm not really full aware of the book, but I just inaugurate the program because I am also new, because the book has come only recently and I also came yesterday only from outside. And I did not go through the book of Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji has edited this book. The book has been in the limelight in the past few days, that is Modi at 20, Dreams Meet Delivery. Actually, this is the main emphasis people has been evaluating Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji's pre-Modi and post-Modi. This is what actually an assessment going on in the country. What are the developments which are taking place in the country pre-Modi time and also post-Modi time. So when you assess this pre-Modi's time and post-Modi's time, whatever the developments which has been taken place in the country has been very remarkable, and they are actually making a big role in the country's economy, particularly the implementation of Aadhaar card successfully, and also the GST tax addition, and also the all purchasing through Government of India portal, GEM portal, and these are actually has been playing a very important role. I'm talking about only few, but the experts are actually very much here to discuss about all the chapters which are actually been covered here. And few of them actually has, which has been I'm mentioned just now, they are really remarkable actually. If you just say small examples, before a GEM portal has been introduced, a lot of corruption has been there in all public sector companies and even government organizations. What is the purchasings made and how it has been made, and what is the procedure they adopted. Everything is actually in a big dilemma, and also it's like a secret actually, nobody knows. But after the GEM portal has been introduced by Government of India to be particularly in all organizations, now every purchase which has been made in the governments and government sector and the public sector undertakings is going to be a white and black now. Nobody can do any kind of malpractice and also corruption. And similarly, the public finance management system, actually, one of the system actually which has been introduced by Honorable Prime Minister Modi, which has been really wonderful, and there are no, that is mismanagement of public finance system. And all these are actually has been very wonderfully done, and actually these are the various things which has been developed in our country, and actually this has been only possible through Honorable Prime Minister Modi, which has been done. And it has been very successfully certified by whole country, how he has implemented. That has been certified in the second term. He was thumping majority, came into second term. And there is no alternative that people, we have seen many governments and many years actually, because children might be not knowing, but we have been seeing since 60 years how the government ruling is going on. But there is a tremendous change in the pre-Modi's time and post-Modi's time. So this is actually going to be discussed. Many contributors, the eminent authors has contributed in this particular book, their experience, their feelings, and their observations pre-Modi and post-Modi time. So this book actually has been covering so many things like this, and I'm also very eager to listen to the speakers, and I will be also listening and also very much interested, and I'm very happy to inaugurate this particular panel discussion on this Modi Said 20 Dreams Meet Delivery. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Professor Bharigathi Panda, Professor of Economics from Northeastern University. He's also holding the responsibility of Honorary Director of ICSSR, Northeastern Region. I request him to make his presentation, please.
So, Honorable, good afternoon to each one of you present here itself. Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Professor Sambasiva Rao, Pro Vice-Chancellor, Professor Patnaik, Registrar of the University, fellow panelist here, Mr. Sailo, Mr. Doungel, faculty members, esteemed faculty members of this very prestigious university, research scholars, friends who have come from different parts of the country, research students, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor on my part that all of you have invited me to this university, to this very prestigious academic institution, to share some of my own understanding and reflections on this very book, that's Modi at 20, Dreams Meet Delivery. Before I speak about the very insightful presentations and the derivations in this book, I would just like to start with two, three sentences, 2-3 very insights. I think that would subsequently reflect upon and bring in the framework the whole understanding and reflection in this book. Let me share that. Personally, to me, here, Modi is not the whole focus of this book, as Professor Patnaik was telling, is not all about Modi as an individual. It's all about Modi and his government, and Modi as an institution, not as an individual, number one. Second, friends, I think all of us are partners in the process of development. As students, as faculty, as working in different fields of life and activities. When it comes to development, realization of it to a great extent depends on institutions. Okay. I think here one myth, let me demystify it. Normally people, I think many are there in our academics also, who believe that the present government led by Modi ji is more towards bringing in a neoliberal kind of an economy, neoliberal kind of a dispensation. That's not true. Actually, I think the whole dispensation, if you look at actually Modi ji's time as Chief Minister and subsequently as Prime Minister, it's more about reforming the institutions and enabling them to realize economic growth and economic development, as we all understand. So I think no other government has been able to change the whole understanding and whole, what you can say, imperative of institutions and as enabler in realizing development, or for that matter, different dimensions of development. So the only difference, the third thing is that, the difference is that we had earlier also governments, we had also earlier governance. But then those were primarily centered around an entitlement framework, architecture. And today, there is governance, there is government, and it's more about governance, which is a totally depart from the earlier practice of governance. That is a total U-turn from an entitlement type of government and governance to enabling governance, wherein you have less of government and more of governance. And all those 21 writers, eminent writers who have contributed to this volume, in fact, they have very explicitly come out with the role that different type of institutions, including governance, that have played in realizing different dimensions of development. Today, when we talk about development, it's not simply about economic growth. It's about realizing, I think, more of empowerment, more of societal, gender, and other kinds of empowerment, better environment. Of course, economic growth will be there itself. So, so today development is all about realizing different dimensions of development. And if you look at actually the contributors who have contributed to this volume, each one of them, there are good number of economists, of course. There are contributors who are from the field of, I think, the best known people from the field of health, from defense studies, from foreign studies, I think all walks of life. Now, let me come to this book. The whole write-offs in this book can be discussed, can be analyzed, in 5 important dimensions. One is the social dimension. The second one will be the political and the cultural dimension. And the third one will be the economic dimension. And the fourth one will be the governance dimension. And the fifth one will be foreign policy and external dimension. Now let me start with the governance first, because the thrust, if you look at actually the thrust, the core of this book is about different dimensions of governance and their role in development. And Modi ji, as the head of the state at one point of time, Gujarat, and subsequently as Prime Minister, how he has reformed and made different dimensions of governance as enabling institutions, enabling provisions to realize many of the cherished required dimensions of development. Now I start with governance. Now, you see, let me start with a simple example. How institutions are crucial in development. Now, and when we talk about institutions, they simply do not include only government. They include all organized forms of institutions like government at different levels, central, state, local. They also include a lot of what you call informal institutions, which basically mean our moorings, our practices, our values, and all these things. So all of them taken, they come under this broad heading as we call institutions. So both the formal institutions and the informal institutions both play dynamic and crucial roles in the realization of development. And in this book, all the writers, you'll find many of them, although at the core of the discussion is the formal institution of government governance, but you will also find mention about the informal institutions and how the informal institutions have also been reformed, molded, and made enablers in the process of development under the leadership of Modi ji. So that's why you will find the reflections on both the formal institutions like government and the informal institutions like values, like practices, like moodings, like cultural habits, everything there itself. Let's start with the governance. Now, you see, when you see governance, when you look at governance, what's governance? It's more about, I think, when it relates to government. Governance is nothing but, when it comes to the government, it's all about the enabling provisions in different fields, okay, which ultimately help in realizing better development. Now, look at the, if you look at the contribution of Modi as the Chief Minister of Gujarat and subsequently as the Prime Minister of the country. Look at actually the reforms and the innovations that he has done in governance, which have helped, I think, to realize different dimensions of development, including the growth dimension, the environmental dimension, the empowerment dimension, and institutional building dimensions. One thing which comes, I think, very poignantly here itself, the empowerment of women. Okay. And for that, actually, look, I see all those provisions, including Ujjwala, for example, the Ujjwala arrangement you have all seen, JAM, the JAM platform. I think all, I think there will be innumerable of such, you can say practices which Modi ji as Chief Minister and subsequently as Prime Minister has brought in. And these, you see, these institutions have empowered women. You see, starting from the villages to the cities. At every level, there is empowerment of women. That when it is a digitalization also, Modi ji ensures that, I think, lion's share of that benefit in terms of empowerment and also as ends go to the women. Ujjwala was specifically meant for the women. Look at entrepreneurship through Mudra scheme. Now in Mudra also, I think if you look at actually the beneficiaries who have got the benefits under Mudra scheme, I think more than the males, it's the females who have got the benefits under the Mudra scheme to become entrepreneurs. So that's the powerful role, that's the powerful impact that Modi ji as the Chief Minister of Gujarat and subsequently for 2 terms, I think, one term is over, another term is going on, as Prime Minister, he has created, he has empowered, I think, the women. So that's a very powerful impact on the society and brings powerful changes in the dynamics of society. That's the social impact. There are plenty, let me just briefly touch upon, maybe subsequently as the discussion proceeds, I can come in. Then look at the political and the cultural. I think, look at actually politics, electioneering. I think the way Modi has connected with the people, development is all about participation and participation of people at large, particularly the underprivileged, the marginalized, including the women. And so just from this angle, I think no other leader in our country, maybe after Mahatma Gandhi, could connect with people at large, particularly the rural population. And that connect itself has been so powerful that has brought in fundamental change in the art and science of electioneering. Today, everyone is forced. Now, it's when electioneering happens, it's not individual-centric. I think whenever Modi ji goes for electioneering, I think it's more about all these issues of development, less about individuals. So you can all understand the students of political science would definitely be interested to see how electioneering as an art and as a science has changed in a democratical arrangement like ours. Even look at actually how he has been able to converge, have a synergy between the aspirations of the people at different levels, particularly the poor and the marginalized, and the aspirations of the youth, the young. We are the youngest country of the world, the aspirations of the young. And then how all the aspirations of different stakeholders, the youth and the marginalized in the rural society, the women, how through technology, how he has used technology and in a sense, using technology, how he has brought in that kind of a synthesis, convergence, the aspirations of the people, and then by using technology, and then, the requirements of development. So this kind of a synergy, I think in electioneering, this kind of a practice in electioneering, I think was missing for a long time. This itself is an innovation. Number three, let me come to economic. Now, in the economic field, see today the life expectancy of Indians has increased to 70. Now, India, I think many of you will be knowing, is the country which is the largest exporter of rice to any part of the world. Okay. And India is the fifth largest exporter of mobile phones to rest part of the world. India is the second largest exporter of shipping services to the world. I'm saying we can go on telling about all this. But thing is that how, see, if you look at actually, earlier we thought in our development practice that economic growth on its own will bring development. And as I was telling, that with government itself in economic activities and with an entitlement kind of an approach, we will be able to have more of development. But as I said earlier, Modi has changed the whole practice of that. If you look at actually how he has used all these initiatives, whether it is JAM platform, whether it is Digital India, Skill India, Mudra programs, all these actually. All of them, I think, economist, Gulati, Professor Gulati has mentioned about it. Professor Gulati says, he starts with a description of Modi's contribution to develop Gujarat economy. During his chief ministership, I think from 2001 to 2013-14, when he left Gujarat, during that period of his chief ministership, Gujarat experienced more than 9% average economic growth, unheard of for any other state in the country. And not only that, the best thing is that the average growth rate of Gujarat for that period, 2001 to 2013-14, was 9.2%. And it was equally matched by the growth rate in agriculture. It was also 9%. No other state till date has realized that kind of a growth rate even in agriculture. So common perception is that Modi is for, I mean to say, select industrialist. But then the way agriculture has grown and the way he had created as chief minister an enabling governance in Gujarat to improve upon agriculture and to realize its, the result also in terms of growth of agriculture. I think no other state has been able to do it. If you look at the Indian context, the average growth of our agriculture, I think till 2014, 2016 was 3.2%. After Modi ji became Prime Minister, although I mean to say the complexities of governing a country like India is definitely much more compared to one state, but then there has been improvement in realizing a better economic growth rate in a better growth rate in agriculture for the country, but then that's marginally higher, 3.5, whereas Gujarat had it at 9%. So that itself speaks of the fact that Modi ji was not for only industrial growth, he was equally also for agriculture growth. So that's the kind of contribution that Modi, as a leader, as an institution, has given to us. I think in the whole, I think first Gujarat and subsequently in the country. So that's in the. I think there are many more things, of course, in the economic space. Let me talk about health economics a little, which I think Samika Ravi, as an economist in this book, also has mentioned, and same thing also has been mentioned by Sudha Murthy ji, and that also been mentioned by Uday Kotak ji, and many others also. They have all mentioned about pandemic, okay, and see how the government of Modi being in the helms of affair, how have they managed this pandemic and its impact. No other country has been able to vaccinate so many people. I think the total number is more than 150 crores, if you go into it. Vaccinating 150 crores and in a developing country like ours with all our nuances was almost an impossible task. And let me tell you one thing more when it comes to Modinomics or the economics of Modi. Anything that Modi does, he always sees the big picture, the scale. He starts it as an idea, but then subsequently, the moment he goes to implement it, he always believes in scaling it up. Because he knows the real economics lies in scale. Okay? And exactly the same thing was reflected when he was delivering in the front of health, particularly meeting out the challenges of the pandemic. More than 150 crores of people getting vaccination. And that too also, again, helping almost like 56, 57 countries in the world, helping them in terms of providing the vaccines. And it all started, see, this is not a small thing, unless I think it requires huge planning, implementation, creating that kind of an architecture. It's not that easy. And in everything that he does, the connect which I was talking, he doesn't simply connect with the individuals in the election, I think election days. That's of course, he does it. But then that's a typical Modi character that whenever, whatever he does, whoever be the stakeholder, he connects and connects poignantly, effectively. And the connect that he has made, there is a sea change with respect to the governance arrangement of Modi, particularly the way he undertakes he deals with his ministers and his bureaucrats. Earlier, most of the Prime Minister was dealing with his ministers. Rarely the Prime Minister deals with the bureaucrats. And here is the Prime Minister who directly deals with the secretaries, joint secretaries, additional secretaries, and takes everyday brief from them. And it's not simply confined to the bureaucrats. For example, the moment he came to know that the Poonawalla of Serum Institute, and he called him personally that, see, this is what we require. Can you do it at this scale? And initially, he was also, not imagining that they could deliver at this scale. But it was Modi's encouragement and the supporting, bureaucracy that he could create, that finally, the Serum Institute could produce that many of COVID vaccines. So what I wanted to tell you is that there is a qualitative change in the way Modi understands and practices economics of development. It's all about he always goes for the scale dimension in any economic activity he does, because he understands only when activities in a country like India is undertaken at a scale, at a critical scale, then only it can help the people at large, and simultaneously also, if you want to export commodities, for example, or services, which you are now trying to do, unless you attain that critical scale in production of goods and services, you will not be able to export. You will not be a global exporting country. So that's the economics that Modi has understood and has practiced, and all the economists here itself, starting from Professor Gulati to Samika Ravi, to Surjit Bala, to Uday Kotak, each one of them have talked about the scale dimension of economic activities being undertaken by Modi. And the second aspect is, realize the benefits of different dimensions of development through reforms in institutions and making them enabling institutions, as I have told to you people. Then governance part, I have already spoken. As I said, at the center of the whole book, all this, if you look at actually a common thread in the writings of all the 21 contributors, eminent contributors, it's governance which poignantly comes out. Okay, the reforms, the enabling provisions in governance at different levels, that has been the core of, the contribution of every eminent contributor in this book. Then the last one is about foreign policy and globalization. All of you, from time to time, come across the way the foreign policy of our country has changed, has reformed. And if you look at actually the crux, the core of the foreign policy today is not one-dimensional. Earlier, to a great extent, it was one-dimensional. Today, foreign policy, Modi ji considers foreign policy not an end in itself, as a means to an end. The end is development of the country and development of the world. And so it's all about so at the center of his foreign policy lies development of the country and development of the whole world. It's not about having, in one-dimensional negotiations and simply, taking foreign policy as building some kind of a convergence across countries or between countries on some specific dimensions. It's not about that today. Today, there is a seamless integration between development policy of Modi and his foreign policy. That's a unique experimentation which Prime Minister Modi has done, and in his arrangement, look at actually how he brings in at one point of time, which was thought to be two parallel dimensions, that is localization or nationalization and globalization, as if the twin do not meet. But here is a Prime Minister and his regime which has very, very actively, in terms of his decisions, has shown that globalization and nationalization can go hand in hand and they can converge. That's why when he says, vocal for local, it doesn't mean that we are not going to be an important partner when it comes to international trade. I mean to say, it's all about you develop your expertise, and then through that, I think you can contribute to world development. And let me tell you also one important thing here itself, which some of these writers, including Uday Kotak and with also Surjit Bhala particularly, and Joy Shankarji also, the External Affairs Minister, has spoken about it. That's all about the neutralizing role that India's economic growth has made in the world level today. Today, India is the stabilizing economic force in the world. Let me tell you how. Post-pandemic, most of the countries of the world, particularly the developed countries, are experiencing double-digit inflation. Inflation has also increased in India, but then not to that extent. Inflation before pandemic was kept below 5%. Today it has marginally increased to, let's say, 6%, 6.5, 6% kind of a thing. But then when you compare it with the rest of the world, it's double-digit inflation. And and the whole world today looks upon India as a stabilizing force. If the world economy today is growing, it's estimated to grow at 3.5%, 3.6% kind of a thing. Much of it is basically because of the growth of India. Post-pandemic, as you all know, Indian economy hasn't decelerated that much as at one point we thought at second phase of our COVID pandemic. It's now growing, I think it's around 7%. And I think no other country in the world is growing at 7%. And so by growing on its own at 7% brings economic stability to the world. And remember another thing, another data which let me share with you. I have got it from the write-ups here of some of these authors, that today, I think India is in USA dollar terms, India is the 6th largest economy of the world in dollar terms. Okay. Now, if you put it in terms of purchasing power parity terms, purchasing power, I think my friends in economics and also from political sciences, and they do understand purchasing power parity. That means if we calculate the income, the national income of a country in terms of average standards of, let's say developing countries or our own, then in that kind of a calculation, India is not the 6th largest country, is the 3rd largest economy of the world. 3rd largest economy of the world. And it contributes to, in USA dollar terms, 11% of the world, you can say, growth. 11% of the world economic growth. And the projections is that in 2050, we will be, even in terms of USA dollar terms, because of our demographic dividend and the kind of governance that we have done, is going to be, I think, the 2nd largest economy of the world after China. And I was the other day, we had invited the Deputy Governor of RBI to our university, and he showed us a beautiful presentation with data, with simulation. There was a simulation done. It showed that 1960 to 1990, it was Japan time, and after that, China. And then, all these countries are aging, particularly Japan and others. And it's now going to be India's time. because of, and we are the young, average age of an Indian is 28 now. Okay, so we are the youngest country in the world. That's why today, why does the world give so much of respect to India today? It's just because of this kind of institutional reforms getting realized in terms of better development, better economic growth, and the whole world realizes without India, the whole world will be an unstable world in many dimensions. Forget about economics, of course economics, even in terms of world peace, world political stability. The world cannot be a world without India. That's the reality. And that's where Prime Minister Modi has made it a point that foreign policy, development policy, they meet not only for the development of our country, but also for the development of the whole world. And just one more example I'll give, then I'll stop. Climate change, I think, is one of the most, I think, talked about challenge, and in fact felt challenge all across the world. And when Prime Minister Modi goes to meetings of, let's say, for example, it's the G7 or G8 or for that matter G20, I think he goes beyond the official mandate of the bureaucrats. Okay? Because it all comes from the experience. Somebody who has experience of every nook and corner of the country and abroad. You will be surprised to know, I think no other leader, government leaders visit different parts of the world. No other leader has visited China so many times as before becoming the Prime Minister, that Prime Minister Modi has visited. He has understood China, I think, in every dimension of Chinese growth, not only in terms of their strategy of, political strategy or for diplomatic strategy, but also in terms of their developmental strategy. I think that's paying dividends to us. Today, if we are taking a tit-for-tat approach, so when it comes to the Chinese, kind of a threat in Doklam and other parts, I think that's basically because it's the experience that he has gone through. That this is, I think both levels. At the level of development, he has a very pro-China stand. He understands. He tells Chinese, that's okay, let's come, you and I, and Nelly can change the world. He impresses upon China. But when it comes to expansionism, you cannot dictate us through your practice of strategy of expansionism. Expansionism and development and world peace cannot go together. And that's very firmly told to the Chinese, and they understand that kind of a language. Because at the end of the day, I think when it comes, the Chinese definitely would consider, because their economy is also aging, their population is also aging, and the labor cost of production in China is now increasing. And China is not going to be, I think, the manufacturing hub of the world 10 years down the line. If you look at the trajectory, the way the world manufacturing hub has evolved, it was at one point of time Europe. In recent history, I'm not going to 1,000 years back when we were also a manufacturing hub 2,000 years back. That's another story. I'm talking about the recent past. In the recent past, Europe was the manufacturing hub. The labor cost of production started increasing very fast in Europe. Subsequently, world production hub changed, and it got shifted to countries like United States of America, Japan, then Southeast Asia, including Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand. And there also the labor cost of product started increasing. It moved to China. And today, the Chinese economy is experiencing increased labor cost of production. That's why they're trying very fast, both USA and China, that through artificial intelligence, through big data, all those things, they would like to see that the disadvantage that they're experiencing in terms of rising labor cost and aging population, they would like to offset it in terms of innovation, disruptions in technology, and through that, reduce the transaction cost of producing commodities. Only future can say, till that this hasn't happened, only future can say whether they can offset the disadvantage that they're experiencing in rising labor costs through leveraging technology. It's not certain now. But then, till that happens, that's our time. That's India's time. That is why I think Prime Minister Modi, all those governance reforms are, you see, the center of that lies making India a production hub of the world. That's where actually, and that's where foreign policy and development policy, they meet. Climate change, I was telling, everywhere Prime Minister goes, I think as I was telling you, he goes beyond the mandate of the bureaucrats. He takes that opportunity. In fact, in one of the meetings, he himself, initially, countries like United States of America, they are very skeptical of Modi, what he would say. Would he go by the kind of stipulation? Because USA and many of the European countries, they impress upon that you and China are, you have to reduce everything, your pollution level and all that. Prime Minister Modi says, perfectly fine. We are going to do it, but that's the rules of the game have not been written with all fairness. First, write the rules of the game. Then only things should happen. And wherever required, he has gone beyond the expectations of United States of America or European countries. And he has done it. He has done it in Gujarat. That Sardar Sarovar experimentation shows how environment and development can go together. So that's the kind of imprint that Prime Minister Modi has during his 20 years of leadership at the government and governance in Gujarat and in the country. And there will be many more such things, of course. And all these 21 eminent contributors to this volume have very explicitly brought out that how ultimately development, not only at the level of the country, at the nation, but at the level of the world, is all about institution buildings, wherein governance and to great extent governance, and to some extent government plays, and that plays so actively, in a country like India under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and maybe in due course of discussion, if there are specific questions, to the best of my capability, I would take them on and would answer. Thank you so much.
Excellent presentation, Professor Panda. In fact, you have dwelt with almost all aspects of the book. Thank you very much for that. Now I request and call upon Mr. L.R. Sailo. He's also the Honorary Director of Indian Institute of Mass Communication, ISOL. Yes, Mizoram. Right? Yeah. Please. And I think Mr. Sailo will be speaking about Modi as a communicator. Yeah.
Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Pro Vice-Chancellor, Registrar, external guest, Professor Panda and Professor Doungel, professors and students. It is a great privilege for me to be part of this discussion in the midst of learned professors and aspiring students of this great university. I had the privilege of associating myself with this university for the last 11 years as we have our institute in this very campus, the Indian Institute of Mass Communication Northeast Regional Campus, functioning here for the last 12 years. The university has given us all cooperation required for establishing the institute in terms of land, support, and all other logistics requirements. Above all, I enjoyed the friendly atmosphere which has been extended to me personally and the institute. The students coming from different parts of the country have enjoyed the campus atmosphere. I think it's an unique. And they also participate in the MZU events, which has enriched their experience in Mizoram. Now, coming to the topic of the discussion, Modi at 20, dreams meet delivery. Since I am not a scholar, I shall not attempt to analyze or give a critical appreciation of the book, or for that matter, in the person of Modi. I'll try to be brief as much as possible, but since I had this opportunity, I'd like to make some observations about Modi as a communicator and a PR man. I've been observing him on this aspect ever since he became Prime Minister, as my profession has also been PR and communication vis-a-vis crisis management, which is a part of public relations. Modi has shown us exemplary action in responding and resolving crisis, and for this reason he is often cited in crisis management-related discussion. He was able to communicate effectively with the public through Twitter and other social media platforms during the impositions of lockdown, and successfully launched Jan Andolan campaign to spread the message of COVID-appropriate behaviors. Previously, we have seen his public relations skills in crisis management, citizen engagement, and efficient use of technology in a program like Man Ki Baat. Now, Man Ki Baat has become a very popular, and with this, Modi has been able to connect the grassroots all over the country. The ease in which he connects to the people from many walks of life is something that is there for everyone to see. His efficient use of participatory communication approach is to a great extent what set him apart from the leaders we have seen so far. And Modi is probably the first Prime Minister who used the media, the digital media and social media very effectively. He understands that the ultimate goal of communication is to bring about behavioral changes. He therefore persistently engages public so that they participate and be able to relate themselves with causes and develop a sense of belonging and ownership. While carrying forward his campaign, he has the opportunity to enhance his public image in the eyes of the people. On the use of technology, Modi himself said that he is able to oversee development works in various parts of the country with the help of drones. And these technologies have paved the way to ensure last mile delivery of the government. Now, what is more relevant to us is that Modi had concern for the Northeast. Modi is seriously concerned for the welfare and development of the Northeast region. He made government facilities and services accessible and available at the doorstep by instructing his ministers and officials to visit the different states of the Northeast frequently and interact with them. There were times when we have 2-3 ministers of union ministers visiting us, and which sometimes is quite a problem, and that's what he does. His willingness to talk with insurgent groups and address genuine concerns for the ethnic group of the Northeast has led to the signing of a settlement agreement with several groups, resulting in the lasting peace across the region. As our Pro Vice has mentioned, that the battle in the insurgency is a battle of the hearts, which probably our security advisor is well aware, and he must have briefed our Prime Minister as well. And so he is trying to win our hearts with development. His development initiatives have also brought economic resurgence in the region. With regard to security, he ensures security at the border by interlinking foreign policy with strong intergrowth. Modi resolves, think big, dream big, and work hard to make them come true. He not only dream, but he also efficiently execute them and deliver. Modi at 20 dreams meet delivery indeed, dreams translated into reality and delivered to the people. I would like to conclude my speech with a quote from Amir Khan about our Prime Minister. He says, "He is one of the most remarkable communicators that Indian politics has ever seen. His ability to connect with the people, reach out to the citizens, and make a place in their hearts is unparalleled. He is one of the few politicians I know who fully understand the potential of soft power and its importance in the foreign relations." This is Modi, and this is all my impressions about our Prime Minister, which I can present today. And it is a great privilege to be with all of you. I hope that's all I wanted to be. As a communicator, I like to be brief and accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sailo, sir. Now I call upon my colleague, Professor J. Doungel. He'll be dealing with 3 important articles written on that. One by Amit Shah, another by Pradeep Gupta, and Anupam Kher. These are the 3 articles that were written in the book he would like to deal with. Please, Doungel.
Moderator of the panel discussion, Professor J.K. Patnaik, Honorable Vice-Chancellor, Professor KRS Sambasiva Rao, Registrar of Mizoram University, Professor Lalnundanga, Professor Bharigathi Panda, Pu L.R. Sailo, my colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen who are present here in this program, I'm glad to stand before you in today's panel discussion. And as has been already highlighted by our moderator, I would like to briefly deliberate on 3 articles out of 21 articles. And these 3 articles I would like to assess with bird's eye view observation. 1 article in section 1 and 2 articles in section 2. And we know the moderator also has already introduced the book and the content of the book. Modi at 20, dreams meet delivery. Why 20 is mentioned? To commemorate the 20 years of Modi as elected head of government, 13 years as Chief Minister of Gujarat, and 7 years as Prime Minister of India. And other than Modi, before Modi, the longest serving elected head of government who has been already entered in the Guinness Book of World Record was Jyoti Basu, former Chief Minister of West Bengal. And looking at the political situation and observing the political scenario, it is likely that Modi may acquire or break the Guinness Book of World Record of Jyoti Basu. And so let me start with my deliberation. First is Democracy, Delivery, and Politics of Hope. It is written by Amit Shah. Amit Shah needs no introduction. We all know him. He has been political associate of Modi for the past 40 years. Then he was president of BJP from 2014 to 2020, and he is the Union Home Minister since 2019. And Amit Shah narrated in his article about his first encounter with Narendra Modi at Ahmedabad in 1987. And he also described how Modi mobilized and strengthened the BJP in Gujarat. He also stated in his article that Modi is the politician who never forgets his election promises. We know what politicians promise during election, even in Mizoram in state election. Sometimes they make toll promises which reach even up to the sky. But what about the delivery? But Amit Shah said, in case of Modi, he never forgets his election promise. And he also described that the tenure of Modi as Chief Minister of Gujarat and Prime Minister of India brought a new scripture of public service and new paradigm of governance for Gujarat and India as a whole. And when Narendra Modi was projected as Prime Ministerial candidate by the BJP in 2014 Lok Sabha election, he focused and canvassed on Gujarat model, which really bore fruit. His performance in Gujarat was the talk of the nation, the whole nation. And due to that, the then BJP president, Rajnath Singh, picked him up to be the prime ministerial candidate. In December 2013, BJP had in the whole country only 4 chief ministers and only 773 MLAs all over India. But what was the situation in 2018? After he became prime minister, the number of BJP chief ministership increased to 15, and the number of MLAs all over India also increased to 1,460. Then Amit Shah also described that BJP could make entry in Northeast. Earlier, no one expected that BJP could make inroad in Northeast. But BJP could make inroad in Northeast, and not only that, BJP could form government in 3 states, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, and Manipur in the initial states. And the influence is still going on. And Amit Shah also described between how national leader was judged and how national leader was defined. He said that the description of national leader on the eve of independence after 1947 was those leaders who had contribution in freedom movement. Then after that, national leader was judged on the basis of those leaders who were promoted, advertised, and publicized by the media. But those such type of leaders, they didn't have any network 25 kilometers beyond the parliament house, he said. Then what is the national leader now? From Modi at present, it is clear that national leader means mass leader who could interact with the people, who could convince with the people. And that is how the status and definition of national leader also changed with Narendra Modi. That is what Amit Shah mentioned in his article. And Amit Shah also mentioned how BJP utilized technology because of the advice of Modi. So when he was BJP president and when they would like to publicize and mobilize enrollment of party member, then with the advice of Modi, they utilized technology. That means by making use of missed call in phone. So they missed call many, and out of that, those who were serious, they pursued it, and through this missed call method, many faithful BJP members were enrolled, and they became leaders also. That was what Modi mentioned. So Modi wanted to emphasize that BJP could convince the electorate, BJP could go ahead only because of the able leadership of Narendra Modi. And now I'll move on to the second article, Changing Elections and Electioneering Forever. It is written by Pradeep Gupta. Pradeep Gupta is a prominent Indian psephologist and founder of Axis My India. So, for the benefit of students who are here, let me define what is psephology. Psephology means a study of election-related study. And those experts who study and analyze election and make prediction of election on the basis of survey and research, they are called psephologists. And this Pradeep Gupta, he is a prominent psephologist. And out of 52 elections which his agency studied, they accurately made prediction in 48 elections. And Pradeep Gupta, he is also alumnus of Harvard Business School. Pradeep Gupta states that winning election is winning hearts of the people, and that Narendra Modi could exactly do it. He described that Modi encouraged the party cadres to focus on telling people about the party's strong points and make them aware about what the party is doing. And Pradeep Gupta also mentioned that Mahatma Gandhi was a pioneer in the art of winning hearts in the 20th century, but in the 21st century, the leader who wins the hearts of the people is Narendra Modi. And how he could do it? He could do it by mixing himself with the people, interacting with the people, and trying to know what the people needed. So, like in case of Mahatma Gandhi, we know he was a lawyer who could spend comfortable life, but he wanted to understand the suffering and condition of the Indian masses. So he left his lawyer profession, traveled every nook and corner of India, and at last he could mobilize the masses for freedom movement. Likewise, Pradeep Gupta mentioned that Narendra Modi left his home at the age of 17, traveled around to know the condition of people, to know what India is, and that bears fruit now. So, at the time when he was General Secretary of BJP in Gujarat, 2 yatras, 2 tolls were organized, and that 2 yatras organized during his term led to foundation of BJP in Gujarat. And in first week of October 2001, he said that Narendra Modi got unexpected phone call from the then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Then he went to Delhi, and after that, the BJP High Command decided him to take over the reign in Gujarat. Then on 7 October 2001, he took over the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Then 4 months after he became the Chief Minister, we know Godhra riots took place. And many strategies, they failed that he might not survive this crisis. He might plunge himself into this problem and he might lose election also. But in the next year, in 2002 election, he improved the BJP tally with simple majority. And the same thing was repeated in 2007, then in 2002 also. And till 2014, he was the Chief Minister. And after he was appointed to be the Prime Minister candidate, then he moved to the center. So in such a way, Narendra Modi could lead BJP to record-breaking victory because of his connection with the mass, and all these have been highlighted by Pradeep Gupta in his article. Then he mentioned that during Lok Sabha election campaign from September 2013 to May 2014, Modi addressed 400 speeches, 400 rallies, then cover more than 3 lakh kilometers all over India. And in such a way, he transformed himself into a mass leader. And Pradeep Gupta also mentioned that Modi delivered what he promised. In this regard, he mentioned the construction of Ram Temple at Ayodhya, abrogation of Article 370, and some other issue he mentioned. Now, let me come to the third and the last article which I have to deliberate. Modi, the main India trust in a crisis. It is written by Anupam Kher. Anupam Kher needs no introduction. He is an international award-winning film star. Then he won Filmfare Awards 8 times consecutive, and after that, he was also bestowed Padma Bhushan, the 3rd highest civilian award of India in 2016. Anupam Kher described the role of Narendra Modi in crisis management. Crisis management from Quds earthquake in 2001 up to cyclone years in 2022. And he mentioned that Modi always ensured quick response. Then he was not in the habit of giving remote control instruction. He will go direct to the spot, then face the crisis. In such a way, there was no delay in whatever he did. Like after he was sworn in as chief minister, the first Diwali he spent with earthquake victims in Quds. He could have spent somewhere in grand function, but he didn't do it. And by spending time, his first Diwali as chief minister with those earthquake victims, lakhs and lakhs of earthquake victims, they became satisfied and they also regained confidence because of the role of Prime Minister being with them. So, Modi always tried to be in any crisis. Then, when Uttarakhand flood took place, many Gujarati pilgrims were stranded there in Uttarakhand. And during that time also, he flew to Delhi. Then he gave instruction from Gujarat Bhawan from Delhi. Then he wrote to Union Railway Minister Mallikarjun Kharge, and for Gujaratis, special train was arranged. And all those stranded Gujaratis from Uttarakhand, they were safely transported to Gujarat. In such a way, Modi always did action. And he also mentioned something about the role of Modi during COVID-19 pandemic. So, out of the 3 articles which I have gone through, and I've gone through some other articles also, and from whatever I have found, some of the points raised by the authors include abolition of triple talaq, abrogation of Article 370, construction of Ram Temple at Ayodhya, emphasization of economic reform, demonetization, goods and services tax as achievement of Modi. And all these issues have been narrated positively in the positive note. There are some and many stories, other side of the story also, but whatever it is, Modi has done commendable work in this regard. And like out of the issue which Modi boldly deal with, Article 370 has been internationalized more after its abrogation. Because when I deliver lecture and had interaction with students and scholars of Department of Political Science in University of Cincinnati, Ohio State, USA last year during my Fulbright program, the first question which they raised was abrogation of Article 370. In such a way, whatever it is, the issue is internationalized. And After going through the sum of articles and the book, I would like to conclude my brief deliberation with the philosophy which guided and which still guides the political system of India, that is unity in diversity. Unity in diversity has been the guiding principle of governance in India since ancient time. Frankly speaking, even before Northeast in general and tribal territories in particular became part of India, this was the guiding principle of governance in India. Like tribal territories in Northeast India, they became part of India or British Empire with the annexation to British Empire by colonial power. We know Treaty of Yandabo was signed on 24 February 1826, and with the signing of this Treaty of Yandabo, province of Assam was created, and in that province of Assam, tribal territories were annexed one after another, and they became part of British India. Like Garo Hills was annexed in 1822, then Golpara in 1826, Kasar in 1832, Khasi Hills in 1854, North Kasar Hills in 1854, Naga Hills in 1866, Gentia Hills in 1882, Northeast Frontier Tract was occupied since 1842 and completely annexed in 1914. Then Lusai Hills was occupied since 1890 and became part of British Empire on 6 September 1895. So even before these territories became part of India, unity in diversity already guided the Indian ethos, Indian philosophy, and governance. Like in ancient period, during the time of Ashoka the Great, then in medieval period, during the time of Akbar the Great also, this unity and diversity was the guiding principle of India. And during freedom struggle also, then the freedom struggle, the freedom movement leaders were guided by this principle. Then when the Constitution of India was framed also, the Constitution of India was also framed with the spirit of unity in diversity. Like from Article 25 to 28 of the Constitution of India, there is about freedom, religious freedom granted. So in Article 25 to 28, many issues have been touched. Like in Article 25, prohibit freedom of conscience and free profession, practice, and propagation of religion. Then Article 26 mentioned about freedom to manage religious affairs. Then Article 27 is against imposition of any religious text, and Article 28 prohibits religious instruction in educational institution. So from this, then in the Constitution also, like in preamble, directive principles of states policy, then in fundamental rights, mostly this unity in diversity is emphasized. So the strength of India, the future of India also lies in this unity in diversity. There may be many religious groups, there may be many caste group, linguistic group, but all these religious group, linguistic group, nationalities, region, and caste, they should live and they should coexist peacefully with love and unity. So on this basis, the strength of India lies. And how will India move on? How will this be maintained? It will also depend on this unity in diversity. Okay, with these few words, let me conclude my deliberation. Thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Doungel. Now is the time for question and answer session. Just in case anybody is having any observation or questions or queries, please raise your hands, and our panelists will be ready to field those questions.
Thank you, Sir Moderator, for the time. Yes, I have gone through the book, and I'm going to give, a response to this book, so that I think more students can give their questions. And I think just before I continue, the 3 students from Sociology Department whom I have given the chapters, after I speak, I invited the three of you to give your observation, since you have the time to go through the chapters also. Coming from Sociology Department, our observation has to be based on observation as well as participant observation. So I'm giving a participant as well as direct observation of what Modi's policies have done for Mizoram, for the state of Mizoram. And this is based not only from my experience here, but prior to coming off MZU, my experience in the state civil service. So the first is Beti Bachao, Beti Padao. So this is very interesting concept. If you remember, Modi government have said, have selected several districts in India for this Beti Bachao, Beti Padao. And in the state of Mizoram, Siaha district was selected, and I was there for quite some time. And in this, we can see that because of this Beti Bachao, Beti Padao, the situation of women in the district of Siaha was improved. First, the thing was that it was selected because Siaha district has one of the lowest, infant mortality in the state of Mizoram. So using this Beti Bachao, Beti Padao program, the state administration was able to provide intervention so that it is able to help the people of Siaha in this. And secondly, the policy of Ujjwala. I don't know whether any of you have know what is Ujjwala, because in our studies regarding deforestation, the impact on Mizoram is quite different because in Mizoram, if you go to the rural area, many people are still using this wooden for cooking. But because of this introduction of Ujjwala scheme, we can see that many villages are going towards a gas burner for their cooking needs. So according to one study, it says that this help in combating deforestation in the state of Mizoram. And thirdly, direct benefit transfer. This is challenged by many people, especially those people who benefit from other form of transfer in the past, making easy way for corruption. But now, because of direct benefit transfer, the people who are supposed to get intervention from the government in the form of financial exchange are able to get their due recognition. So this is very interesting. And Digital India. As a teacher, let me ask among the students, how many of you have UPI? Please raise your hand. Google Pay, Beam, Phone Pay?
All.
Yeah, all of us. So even though you may think in the past that Modi politics has not affected your life, it has affected our life. And now we are in third semester. How many of you have paid your fee through Quick Fix? All of you.
Yeah.
So this, we can see the impetus comes from Modi intervention in the form of Digital India. So even though we may think that living in Mizoram, very far away from the center, but still we are impacted by this national politics. So this is something which we have to see, and this is something which we have to understand. And one point as a sociologist which I want to point out, but which the author of the various articles in this book has missed out, is smart city. Even Aizawl, we are selected as smart city. Now in the near future, we hope that Aizawl will be more and more internationalized through intervention from the central government in the form of smart city. But I don't know why they missed this in this book.
No, they have not missed that. Let me explain to you. Smart city per se has not been mentioned, but the urban development dimension has been done.
But the exact smart city, okay, sir. So, and the last one that I want to say, even though I have so many things to say, is recognition given to Northeast community by the Modi government. And I think all of us in this room, if you check out the social media in the past 2-3 days, it is the, recognition of Raupwiliani as Indian freedom fighter. So this is something that as a Mizo, I feel very proud. In the social media, many people say that Raupwiliani do not know the concept of India. But what Modi government did is that Raupwiliani do not need to know the concept of India. Modi government is celebrating anyone who is criticizing or who is fighting against the British during the colonial time. And Raupwiliani herself fight against the colonial power. So that makes her a freedom fighter. So that is something I think that we have to understand. So during this short time, I can say that Achedin has arrived for so many of us. So I hope that it will continue to be for the rest of the people whom Modi politics have not yet touched. Thank you, sir.
Excellent.
My name is Arlo Tantwangi, and I'm from the Department of Sociology, third semester. So I have read on this article written by P.V. Sindhu, and
very
it
good.
is on the article on why Modi is the undisputed youth icon. So here she has written extensively about why Modi deserves to back this title of youth icon, and it's quite enlightening actually, because many of the things that she has written, many of us has not known before. So she has written about why why Modi is so deserving of this title of a youth icon. And so she has talked about, so P.V. Sindhu, we all know that she's a sports person, so she has written in that aspect. And so here she has talked about how Modi has inspired her personally to reach for her dreams. And so here, one of the questions that I actually wanted to ask is on whether, so with Modi getting this title of a youth icon, so is there any other ways, other than what P.V. Sindhu has mentioned, that Modi can motivate the youth more, especially maybe the youth in the Northeast? So maybe are there any other ways through which do you feel, people feel that he can focus more so that the youth can be more encouraged than they have done now? So that is the question that I wanted to ask after reading this article.
Okay. Any one of the panelists can answer? Yes. Yeah, please.
Is there any other way of connecting with the youth in the Northeast? There are so many provisions, particularly, let's say, entrepreneurship. Northeast Modi talks about one thing I forgot to tell you because of the paucity of time, using culture as to promote development, the cultural capital. Northeast has a lot of that cultural capital, okay? And Modi knows, I think no other leader knows how to leverage cultural capital, the power of the youth in economic development. Now, when you say, is there any other way? Northeast, before partition, has that entrepreneurial culture. Maybe it was contextual to the that kind of a household economy or society, not for the market. But people used to take pride in their own labor. My friends from Mizoram, Nagaland, Arunachal, they used to take pride in their agriculture. May not be that agriculture was much for the market, but then they used to take pride in their physical work. Subsequently, we had a centered state development, in a dependent development model for post-partition, and that somehow actually took away the entrepreneurial culture, the spirit of the people in the Northeast. Just because many of young friends, that's sorry to say, they thought development is all about money coming from Delhi, being invested in Northeast through the institution of contractors, leading to rent seeking. And that this rent seeking culture, which somehow actually was thought to be the mechanism of development, and the youth started actually, in schools and colleges. Once I asked students in Arunachal that in a college, what would you like to after your graduation? 40 to 50% said that we would like to become contractors. That's because they have seen that contractors were having wealth, and that's the role model youths wanted to have there itself. And that's basically because they have forgotten much of the past, and they thought this rent seeking is the mechanism to development. Today, Modi wants to change it. Through this activist policy, it wants to appeal to the cultural capital of the Northeast, the youth power of the Northeast, that yes, come, here is Mudra, here are specific programs for you, here is DBT, take advantage of that, become an entrepreneur. Don't depend only for government jobs. So that's the way Modi wants to connect with people. My friend was excellently I think, interacting and reflected upon on 3 aspects. Let me tell you, this DBT, I think this contextualized DBT with respect to Mizoram society and the people. Through DBT, Modi government per annum saves 60,000 crores, which was simply being siphoned off. DBT saves for the government 60,000 crores. So that's the way, I think it's through technology, through digitalization, leading to using it as a means for the youth of the Northeast, getting them entrepreneurship, making them entrepreneurs in their own rights in the Northeast. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lalnundanga, Department of Political Science. So here I have a few questions. First, I will ask Sir Panda. In recent time, we see that our External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar, have been speaking in different universities about the foreign policy of India. So, seeing that, I just want to ask, what will be the future of India in her foreign policy in the unipolar world, as the third largest economy in the world? So, according to you, I'll just ask. And for Sir Doungel, recently we see that Ms. Draupadi Murmu has been elected as the president of India. So there can be like, thought that is BJP using minority of India as its political leader in India? So because I have not read the books, I just want to ask about your opinion. And it's also with Sir Sailo about the good connection as your topic. We have heard a lot about Man Ki Baat from our PM Modi. So is Man Ki Baat really effective to the people of India? Because he has been doing this for like many years already. So seeing that, is it really, Man Ki Baat really effective to the people of India? If you can answer, I'll be very happy, sir.
That's a very interesting question you asked about the unipolar world and Jaishankarji's engagement. See, India is not going to believe in this unipolar kind of a thing. The whole arrangement that government of India during Modi's regime leadership and Jaishankar is trying to do is to make, I think to the extent possible, it should be globe for everybody, multipolar kind of a thing. It's all. And that's where actually the Indian engagement is all about. Look at actually, look at the way the Western power was losing their, powers, their maneuvering capability, influencing the global, practices, and the way China was emerging. Okay. Now, see, look at India's engagement, whether it's through Act East policy with ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and going beyond that with Quad, and then going beyond now. I think bringing right from the Gulf up to Australia, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia, East Asia, all taken together. See, why this kind of engagement? And this is the engagement that the world requires. That world cannot be left to the whims and wishes of one power, if that be the emerging power, let's say, for example, China. See? So all said and done, the whole engagement of India is to see that developmental practices are not hijacked and the contours of the world, I think, political arrangement, institutional arrangement, developmental arrangement should not be simply governed, dictated by one or two countries. It should be inclusive. So that inclusive development, inclusive world institutions, India through its engagement, Jaishankarji through his engagement wants to create at the world level that inclusive arrangement in every institution, be it UNO, be it different other kinds of institution. So that's where, and that's because we feel that that's ultimately brings you what you call the peace and development. And since we understand development, even at the world level, needs to be inclusive, I think that's the engagement. It's not about promoting unipolar one. India is against having a unipolar kind of a thing. It's all about having, I think, inclusive development, inclusive foreign engagement, inclusive global institutions. Thank you.
With regard to the election of Draupadi Murmu as president, in fact, she is the first scheduled tribe president of India. And in every strategy adopted by political party, we should know that there is electoral strategy. That is part of it. It is a hidden fact. But not only electoral strategy, as ruling party, UPA, led by BJP, has to win both presidential and vice presidential election. In the political history of India, from independence till now, only once ruling party candidate was defeated. And with regard to the election of Draupadi Murmu, so for election of the President of India, the Electoral College comprised of, as we know, members of Parliament and Legislative Assembly. So UPA was not that in comfortable majority. In such a NDA was not that in comfortable majority. Due to that, NDA has to adopt strategy so that even some UPA partners could be influenced. Likewise, even those political parties who were neither part of UPA nor NDA, they voted for Draupadi Murmu. And even UPA partner themselves, some of them, they voted for Draupadi Murmu. So in such a way, the strategy of Modi and the strategy of BJP, it has multi-sided success. In such a way, every time there will be electoral strategy, electoral advantage will be there in any policy and program adopted by BJP. But having said that electoral strategy is there, that is not the main. On the other hand, it is the chance to give scheduled tribe to be the elected head of state.
Well, Man Ki Baat, it's just a thing. It is not Man Ki Baat which has effect, but it is his performance communicated through Man Ki Baat. So Man Ki Baat is just one tool of communication, wherein Modi communicate his achievement policies, and thereby the success, of course, you know, performance is most important, and people have to know what he does, and Man Ki Baat is one of the medium in which he communicates. I think in public relations we say 95% performance and 5% publicity. And here, if Man Ki Baat has a role, it's a 5%. But the success is his performance. So Man Ki Baat is one of the tools of public relations wherein Modi keep in touch with the masses. And radio today, it's not outdated. It is one of the most powerful communications in the rural areas of the country. So this is what I can say about it on this. Thank you.
Any more questions, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Julie Changte from Department of Sociology. So our professor gave us 3 articles, and I got this article titled New Grammar of Women Empowerment by Shobhana Kamineni. So, like in the introduction, like our sir have introduced, he introduced the different dimension. So just think it as me coming from the social and cultural dimension. So I read this article, and then it was written about the initiative taken by the Modi government on how they introduce schemes and laws for the improvement of woman position in our country. So what came into my mind is that, like, yes, new laws have been brought in, and that is very good, and we can see that she provided facts and statistics. So new laws have been brought in and new schemes launched. However, I cannot ignore the fact that what is needed is wider acceptance and acknowledge that women have rights, and those rights needs to be acknowledged and protected. Like many schemes have been introduced, and we know these schemes, but if there are still these restrictive cultural norms, then somehow it becomes a barrier. So, like, the question is, how will our Prime Minister government, like the Modi ji government, how will they like tackle this problem, the cultural, the restrictive cultural norms? How will they tackle this? Thank you.
No, because I have gone through that. Actually, the cultural constraints, with regard to the empowerment, women empowerment, you need to have transformation. And this transformation does take place with the use of technology, with the use of other means like socio-economic development. So the cultural constraint can be overcome by having socio-economic development. You can have the use of technology. And for instance, the triple talaq, abolition of triple talaq, which she has referred in that book. Initially, a section of Muslim community had some apprehensions. But, subsequently what we have seen is that there is a kind of acceptance. The fact that the triple talaq thing was in practice amongst the Muslim community was, being questioned by a large section of people, specifically the women. So that is a cultural dimension that you are talking about, the cultural constraint. But slowly and steadily, it has been accepted. And it is going to be accepted because the legislation as an instrument of change, social change, if you know that, takes some time and has a gestation period, and subsequently it will definitely transform the society. And that's how Modi government is trying to transform the society, transform the Indian, India, for example. So that's how women gets empowered. Yeah.
Sir, let me just 1 minute.
Yeah. Please.
Look at actually, this cultural norms now which you are talking about it. Very true, very nice, very nice question you have asked. Cultural constraints, they're all they come through the cultural institutions, okay? And they are a derived set of the social constraints, okay? Now look at actually how institutions change them. Prime Minister Modi, look at actually, one thing is triple talaq, was Professor already Patnaik has mentioned. Ujala scheme, 8 crore connections have been given by now through Ujala. And that's best fundamentally for women, to empower them, okay? 11 crore toilets by now have been constructed. That's essentially for women, okay? Mudra loan, as I was telling, a lion's share of it has gone to the women. Now, see, what I'm telling actually, DBT transfer, which we're all talking about it. See, all these, these governance arrangements, provisions, they impact through its own, economic and, the societal arrangement. It changes the social institutions. When social institutions change through these kind of measures, what happens? It empowers the woman within the household and her as a member of the household vis-a-vis the rest part of the household, and then her household and the rest part of the society. So those, and then when social arrangements, they change because of these initiatives, cultural constraints can't remain far behind. They will definitely have their own impact. And that's what exactly, that's a subtle way of changing cultural constraints. There are cultural enablers also, but then there are constraints. And these constraints change through this kind of framework, these kind of initiatives. Thank you.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lalremruati. I'm also from the Department of Sociology, third semester. So I read this article by Surjit S. Bhalla, and the article is named as Success of People-Centric Approach. Under this, we have the heading Extreme Poverty in India Post-Pandemic. And there is this line that caught my eye. It says, food subsidies are not included in Indian or, for that matter, any other country's survey estimates of consumption. My question is, how does the Modi government address to this issue? I suppose the policy of one nation, one ration card comes under this. And if it is so, is there any other policies or elaboration that can be made under this statement?
Essentially, can you just repeat once again what exactly you would like to know? You were talking about food subsidy, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah.
There is a statement here. It says, food subsidies are not included in Indian or any other country's survey estimates of consumption. So coming from the sociology department, like I suppose economic students or any other departments may be aware of it. I am not, speaking of me, actually aware of that. And if that is the case, how is it that Modi government is addressing to this particular issue? Can the policy of one nation, one ration card come under that?
Yeah, definitely. See, food subsidy, as you have said, no, Professor Surjit Bhalla has mentioned. See, it's only required for the people who do not have the means, adequate means to go, get the required food, isn't it? So they require subsidy. They require, subsidy and then food grains, at a concessional rate from the government. This is a what you call an interim arrangement. Okay, let me tell you. Subsidy, when it was earlier arrangement, when the DBT was not there, I think I was telling you the kind of pilferage, the kind of corruption that was happening. Now through DBT, to a great extent, those things are being addressed too. Now there is still this ration card you are talking about it, through which food distribution is given to the marginalized sections of the society, isn't it? Now, even this arrangement also, it's not foolproof now, okay? And there is, even this also, there is a talk right now how to bring it under the DBT kind of an arrangement. Debate going on. They have not yet reached the final stage. What exactly to be done? Because here is a problem. Our, FCI godams are full of food stocks. Okay, that's where actually let me tell you here itself, one scheme where I think Modi, under pressure, I think had to withdraw these 3 laws, farm laws. Honestly speaking, as an economist, and Surjit Bhalla is a great supporter of that, I do also. I think these 3 laws were basically meant for the good of the people and the farmers. Just because 2 states, farmers of 2 states, for vested interest, they hijacked. And ultimately, there is no economic rationale of giving that kind of a subsidy. And so that culture of subsidy leads to only corruption. Fine. In the long run, we need to come out of it. I think the farmers in the rest part of our country do not get the benefits of this kind of subsidy, except 2-3 farmers of 2-3 states. So your question is food subsidy. When you say, I think he was referring to this kind of a subsidy. And these subsidies, because the political compulsion was so huge, this is only one scheme or one provision where Modi had to withdraw, although there was enough of economic rationale to bring in all these farm laws. And this is where I think, let me be honest, just like Professor Gulati has said, I think they have all talked about Modi, achievements and all that. But in certain cases, including our chief economic advisor also, they have said something more also could be done. Okay, so in that context, actually, I think in the heart of the hearts, Modi didn't want to withdraw this, farm laws, but he had to do it because of the political compulsion. Okay, and that's the food subsidy. I think this kind of a subsidy is not tenable. I'm sure once we become a mature nation, and we will again ask for that, let's have again those kind of farm laws. Our own farmers will ask, let's have these kind of laws so that we can export more of agricultural product to the rest part of the world and get foreign exchange. Not this kind of a subsidy which helps only chosen few in only 2 or 3 states. Okay, thank you.
I hope any other question or any query observations if you have, or so we'll wind up. Just I will take one. Any questions? No. Okay. It has been an extremely wonderful exercise. Modi at 20. We have had a threadbare discussion about the book, not only book, but about Modi as a leader, political leader, a charismatic leader, and also a master strategist, whether it is electoral strategy, economic strategy, or even defense strategy. In the beginning, I told you that I read that book, this morning I read Ajit Doval's article. I was wonderstruck the extent of nitty-gritty that Modi was concerned about with respect to India's defense and foreign policy. You see, we generally feel that we academics have got that monopoly of, understanding the strategies, strategic studies and the foreign policy, defense studies. But it was Modi. It is the Modi that has the capability and the wisdom to guide the country in the 21st century. I really appreciate. Is there any thanks? You will do thanks. Oh, Ruth will do. Yeah. Before I invite Dr. Ruth to propose a formal vote of thanks, let me take the opportunity to thank our Vice-Chancellor, the resource persons, 3 panelists who have done their wonderful job in presenting the book before you. I thank our registrar, who was single-handedly responsible for organizing the entire logistics. I thank all the colleagues and my dear student friends. I thank you all. I really appreciate your patience. Thanks. Now I request Dr. Ruth to have a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, our respected moderator. I know that it's not a time to propose a very long vote of thanks, since most of the students are going to adjust with the bus timings. So firstly, I would like to thank our Honorable Vice-Chancellor and the 3 distinguished speakers, panelists who have come today. I thank them for their thought-provoking and very encouraging and enlightening presentation they have done. Thank you very much for your time and for your expertise. Thank you. And also, I would like to thank our moderator, the Pro Vice-Chancellor, Professor J. Patnaik, for conducting a very smooth discussion. And thank you very much, sir, for that. And also, I want to thank the registrar, respected registrar, and also his office, staff, Mapui, and all the others. They are the backbone for the success of this whole arrangement. So I want to thank the registrar and his office for that. And I want to extend my gratitude and thanks to all the other officers, the GADs, the PR cell and also the engineering cell. They are the ones who are managing all the halls and all the publicity, everything. I want to thank them as well, the GAD and the PR cell and the engineering cell. And also I want to thank the faculty members and the students who are present today. They are from the School of Humanities and Humanities and Education and the School of Social Sciences. So I thank the faculties who are here and the students who are present, and especially those students who have taken part in the discussion. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. And lastly, but not the least, I want to thank my fellow the organizing committee, the School of Humanities and Education. We have the Dean, Professor Baral, and from the Head of Department of Education, Professor Malsomi, and Department of Hindi, Professor Sharma. And as the coordinator, I want to thank my fellow organizing members for organizing this program successfully. So I thank everybody. Thank you. Refreshments are served downstairs, so as you go out, everybody should take their refreshments. And the refreshments and the usherings are done by the Department of Mizo. I want to acknowledge that as well. Thank you.